Welcome back, everybody, to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's course, we're going to be talking about bash scripting for system administrators. Right now, I want to give you a quick introduction to the course and talk about the syllabus and the contents of that course. So let's go ahead and get started. A little bit about me, in case this is the first time that you've taken a Linux Academy course where I'm the instructor. I am one of the instructors at Linux Academy, and I carry multiple certifications across a number of information technology disciplines. Over the past 20 years or so in IT, I've held a number of positions in development, system administration, security, and architecture. I've led teams of engineers and administrators, as well as directing the technical strategies of several organizations. During my career, including my most recent career experiences, my team has been responsible for the installation, configuration, and management of a large number of Linux systems. And I've been using Linux myself since about 1993, so I've been around the game just a little while. We're going to be covering bash scripting in a lot more detail than you'll find in any of the other courses that we've done so far here at Linux Academy. In fact, that is going to be the entire course, is how do we do effective bash scripting. In order to do this, we're going to have to cover things kind of from soup to nuts. So the first part of the course, for those of you who may be more experienced, may be something that you can skip through. You may not be interested in certain topics, and I will try as much as possible, even during the period that we're covering individual concepts for scripting, I will try to cover each topic in and of itself without interdependencies, so that if you want to skip around, you likely won't miss anything that's very important. I'll try not to have concepts that depend upon you seeing the exact content or the script that we've done in the past. If and where I need to do that, I will try to indicate so. But I will try to write a script for that particular concept that covers it from start to finish without any other dependencies. The first section, outside of the introduction, we're going to look at core concepts for bash scripting. And all we mean by that are things like the bash environment itself. We'll talk a little bit and give a little bit of history about the bash environment, and then we'll talk about a lot of the configuration files, the core bash configuration files, like bash profile and bash history and bash RC, etc. We'll talk about environment variables and how those affect bash, how we can get them from within our scripts, as well as how we can set them so that our script can take advantage of them. We'll talk about what makes a file a bash script, and it's not just simply appending .sh to something, but we'll talk about the structure of a bash script file. We'll also introduce exit codes and return status so that when we run a bash script, we can return information that we can take action on at the end. We'll also talk about pipes and redirects, signals, and how to run things in the foreground as well as the background. For scripting itself, we're going to talk about a large number of concepts. So we're going to talk about execute permissions in the path, the runtime environment itself, how to add comments to our scripts. We'll talk about static as well as dynamic variables. We'll talk about I/O handling, whether that's ports, files, directories, or all of the above. Conditionals and flow control, which will be actually very important because those give us the ability to determine what parts of our script run when, as well as to determine the path that that particular script will take in terms of how it runs through and what it does. We'll look at declaring functions, setting arrays, parsing runtime arguments, and then testing values, whether a directory exists, a file exists, a value exists, whether it's passed in at the command line or redirected as part of an external command, or even provided as part of interactive command. We'll look at functions and code blocks. So as our scripts evolve and become more traditionally development looking, where they're not so linear, we'll look at how we can control the flow by simply making a call to other functions and code blocks. We'll look at subshells and the effect that that'll have on our scripts, especially when it comes to environment variables. We'll look at special structures that we can use to control flow. how to do math, not only addition and subtraction, but more advanced math functions. We'll look at how we handle errors within a script so that we can react in the script without simply bailing out, as well as how we handle an error if the script ends in an error, what we can do with it. We'll talk about advanced I/O, which will cover IPC, signals, interactive user input, redirection, file handles, and that's just part of them. We'll look at advanced find, things that we can do within a script to find information on our system, files, and concepts, and what we can do with that information when we find it as part of a find command or as part of a conditional so that it allows us to react if something exists. External dependencies, how we can source external files, include them in our configuration, libraries, etc. A big concept for date and time. We'll talk about date, time zones, how we format those things, and how we can add those so that we have cron jobs that can run under a certain period of time and then append the results with the timestamp to a file that we can then do other reactions on. We'll talk about metadata on our file system, directory and file out attributes, and then we'll start to put it all together when we talk about the automation of common system administration activities that we can do within our shell scripts. And then finally, we'll look at how to use all of these things in conjunction with cron and things to be aware of when you're using cron and shell scripts themselves. It reacts a little bit differently to things like command line interfaces. It has to be non-interactive, as well as environment variables are affected. Some of the topics are relatively involved. We'll often see them taking more than one video to walk through as we try to break things logically into digestible chunks. And that's in particularly things like conditionals. We're not going to cover all conditionals in a single video. We'll cover if statements in one video, while and do statements in another, case statements in a third, etc. We'll try to logically break things into digestible chunks without going overboard. But the key to this course from your perspective is going to be understanding each concept by itself. Once you have a good handle on the vast array of scripting options in each of those individual concepts, then you'll start to follow along and easily see how we can put it all together for some truly advanced environment and shell scripting that we can do as a result. So that's all there is for a quick introduction and a syllabus that'll give you the basic structure of our course. In the next video, we'll go ahead and get started. That's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.